This is Rob Chappell, and it's 365 Amplified for Friday, May 9th, 2025. Slightly different kind of podcast this week. We had some conflict, some schedule conflicts with the team, so we ended up not being able to convene the reporting team to talk about the news. But I did get two terrific interviews for you. First of all, we'll hear from Jasmine Banks, who is the founder of the Underground Hiking Collective. On Madison365.org this morning, I have a feature. I talked to several different outdoorsy type folks about their recommendations for places and activities for you to get outdoors this summer. So that's at Madison365.org this morning, and I talked with Jasmine about that. And then also talk with Gary Davis, who's a cancer survivor who is organizing the second annual Fighting Disparities Free Men's Health Screening and Prostate Cancer Education event next weekend. Really important moment for men's health and for men, especially men of color, to come to a welcoming and comfortable environment and just get checked out, get some blood drawn. Check on your cholesterol and your testosterone, your glucose, all those things. But I talked with Gary about that and about his experience. Before we get to those, one news item we want to mention that we learned late Thursday. Madison police announced that Jeffrey Ruppnow, who is the father of the Abundant Life Christian School shooter, Natalie Ruppnow, who killed a teacher and a student and wounded 6 others before ending her own life. Her father has been arrested and charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor and supplying firearm to a minor, resulting in death. 2 counts of that. So, as we've seen in some other school shooting incidents around the country, authorities are beginning to hold parents accountable. We don't have a lot of details yet on the case that'll be made against Mr. Ruppnow, but we did get some additional details, including that Mr. Ruppnow was warned or was told as far back as 2022 that Natalie was posting online and displaying a fascination with violence and with guns and with mass shootings. That doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily a straight line from posting online to perpetrating a school shooting, but, there were red flags apparently. We'll learn more about that as the case moves its way through the court system, but that is it feels significant that a parent is being held to account. Other than that, lots of news this week at Madison365.org for you to catch up with. We'll get the whole team back together next week, and but for now, here's my conversations with Jasmine Banks. Stay tuned through that, and then with Gary Davis. And joining us now is Jasmine Banks, which is a name you hear around town, like, because you're just kind of like a person sort of like involved in a lot of community stuff. But the reason we're talking today is I have a feature up by Madison365.org this morning about a whole bunch of recommendations of outdoorsy things to do this summer. And Jasmine, you're one of the people I talked to, and you're one of the people that was recommended to me by multiple other people. When I asked other people, who should we talk to? Who else should I talk about this? They all said, well, Jasmine, obviously. So
I love it.
How are you doing today? Thanks for being here.
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's get to it first before we get to like how you came to where you are in terms of the outdoor stuff. Give me your top 2 or 3. If somebody says, hey, where should I go hiking this weekend? What's your
Absolutely.
kind of go-to?
Okay, so depending on where you live, if you like to be within city limits, outside of city limits,
Mm-hmm.
within city limits, I think Olin Conservancy is always a great place to go. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
get prairie, you're going to get woods, you're going to get water. So that's always my number one.
Mm-hmm.
I love Lake Farm Park. So there's the Nine Springs, the E-Way. So there's plenty of different uh, areas that you can do in one location, which is it's over by Walmart, Super Walmart in Monona.
Right.
So
Right.
again, you're going to get a whole different variety of fauna and flora. And then most recently, I was talking to some young folks at work, and this is a park I've never been to before, but it's called Walking Iron County Park in Maislemaney.
Oh, I haven't
And
been
so
there either.
I haven't either, right? So I think I'm gonna check it out this weekend. And what
Okay.
I learned was my job, I work at Operation Fresh Start. They were out
Mm-hmm.
there planting needle grass, which I've
Oh,
never heard of before. But also what I learned today was they have a remnant prairie. So a prairie that's been untouched since the beginning of time. So I'm super
wow.
excited to go check it
That's
out.
so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I live out here in Mount Horeb, so like Meso's not that far from me. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I've
So you have
never,
to check it
I've
out.
never. Yeah, that sounds great. And now I think one of the cool things about Dane County is you kind of live in a city, Madison, but it takes like 5 minutes to get somewhere really outdoorsy,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah.
it's like we take that for granted
Absolutely.
that we have those resources here.
I think we do,
Um,
because I think when we think
mhm,
about going outdoors, we think about you have to have a car to get to
right,
where you wanna go, but
right.
it's literally sometimes within walking distance or on a bus
Hmm.
ride.
Hmm. Um, Now talk a little bit about how you came to this because you're not you're founder of the Underground Hiking Collective, right? Which we kind of talked
Mhm.
about yesterday. But
Yeah,
but not like a formal organization. You don't have like a formal like outdoors education or whatever. But which is kind of the point here. Like you're just a person who decided you want to go hiking sometimes, right?
that's right. Yep,
Tell us
absolutely.
how that came to be.
Okay, so in 2022, I wanna say, I was on social media and ran across this program called the 52 Hike, Challenge, and it was started in COVID during
Mm,
2020 by a
mm-hmm.
couple in California, and I think it was just a means or a way to get people outside, right? Because we were social
Yeah.
distancing, like, we were doing all
Right.
the things.
Mm-hmm.
So I paid, I think it was like 25 bucks to keep me accountable. And I asked my sisters, we were all in our 50s. We were all folks that if you were to look at us, you would think, oh, they don't enjoy the outdoors. That's not them, right? And so, as the youngest of five girls, I asked my two sisters that live in Madison to join me. And over the course of 393 days, it took us to complete the 52 hike challenge.
That's so cool. And
Yeah.
what did you learn during those 52 hikes?
I learned that the outdoors isn't as scary as maybe I thought they were.
Yeah.
Uh, Even though we had some challenges, right? Like,
Sure.
I learned that, the outdoors is for everybody,
Mhm.
right? I learned that the state of Wisconsin is beautiful. It's incredible, right? Like, again, oftentimes you see the things that are outside of Wisconsin. You think about national parks when you think of hiking. You think about all these things that are not literally in your backyard.
Yeah.
And so it was a beautiful way to explore not only Madison and Dane
Mhm.
County, but the state of Wisconsin.
How far afield did you go in Wisconsin?
We went all the way up to, and I'm gonna Hurley, Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, and I'm gonna get this wrong. It was a national, I'm gonna get it wrong, the Apostle Islands. So
Oh,
we
sure.
walked
Mhm.
along, yep, yep. So we walked along the shoreline there. And that was a
Of Lake Superior?
recommendation. Yep,
So cool.
yep. And so that was a recommendation from a high school friend of mine.
That's awesome. Tell me about then you've in the intervening years, you've gotten, like, kind of recruited other people of color specifically to kind of follow your footsteps, literally. Uh, and
Yep,
you
yep,
kinda invited folks
absolutely.
to experience something maybe they hadn't thought about before,
I did. So,
right?
I post a lot of my journeys on social media,
Mhm.
and the reason why is because I wanna make sure that people see the things that I do because I want them to understand that they can do them too.
Sure.
right? Because
Sure.
sometimes if we see it, we understand that we can do it too.
Yeah.
And so, it was just a way of me, like, bringing people on board. And recently, I decided to start the Underground Hiking Collective,
Mhm. Which,
which it's
which which is not to say you're hiking underground.
that's right, that's right.
Right?
Nope, nope, no, we're not
We're not
hiking
caving.
underground.
We're not going through
That's right,
tunnels and caves and things, right?
that's right. No, we're not going through tunnels and caves. It's just a means to get BIPOC folks, so Black, Indigenous, Brown,
Mhm.
people of color,
Mhm.
to get together and enjoy the great outdoors.
Yeah.
So we started it, and when I thought about it, I reached out to Dexter Patterson and Chris Kilgore, 2 of my
Mhm.
sons,
Mhm.
and said, "Would you join me in this adventure?" And they said yes.
And, both of those guys are I talked to for this feature, and they both recommended I talk to you.
I love
Chris
it.
Kilgore, of course, founder of Calling the Outdoors. Dexter Patterson, the, Wisco Birders, the BIPOC Birding Collective, or the BIPOC Birders Club.
Mhm.
Just established outdoors guys.
Yeah.
But you engage with them, and they know people, and they know kind of, like, how to do all this and where to go, right?
Yep, absolutely. And
Yeah.
so the beautiful thing about, creating this space with Chris and Dexter is, like you said, we all know different people from different walks of life, and to
Mhm.
be able to create this space for folks to just kind of be who they are. Because in
Mhm.
nature, you'll hear people often say, "Nature doesn't care who you are,"
Right.
right? And so
Yeah.
again, being able to bring folks along into nature, and especially in the time that we're in, it's just a tough time.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I've been camping since I was a little kid, and I just always want to be outside. But it is. I hadn't thought about that, but like in stressful times, like when the entire country is stressed out, like it's nice
Yep.
to pause and be quiet and be outside,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely, and sometimes you don't even have to be quiet, right? Because
Well,
one of
no,
the things that I right, like
no, you don't have to be quiet, but like you cut off the noise of the news and
yes,
social media and all that, and
yeah,
you can holler and scream all you want, but it's a much
that's
different
right,
experience.
and you get to replace it with the sound of nature,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
the birds and the breeze
Mhm,
and the insects, and, like, you get to replace that, like you said, that noise inside of your head with
mhm,
the noise of nature, which is extremely healing.
yeah. Um, through the underground hiking collective, that just started, like, earlier this year, right? Like, you've been connecting with
It
Chris and
did,
Dexter and folks. What,
yeah.
what trails have you conquered with that group?
Absolutely. Yeah, so we started it, the intention was to start it on Martin Luther King Day, but it was so cold that we decided to do it the Saturday before,
Okay.
because again, what we wanna do is create a beautiful experience, especially for folks who've never done it before, so then they want to keep coming. Because if you have a bad
Mhm.
experience,
Yeah.
my thought is you're less likely to keep doing it, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And so 14 of us gathered at Donald Park in what did we say it was yesterday?
It's right next to Mount Vernon,
That's right, that's right. So we
which
gathered
is
there.
south of Mahorb.
Okay, yep, and it's
Mhm.
not far outside of Madison either.
No, it's not too far at all.
Um, and so we gathered there and had the most beautiful time.
Mhm,
So that was in January, and I'm gonna forget one of the parks. We've been to Olin Turtle,
mhm.
we have been to Donald Park, we've been to Picnic Point. I'm missing a park that I
Mm,
can't think about, but, when we first started, we had 15, I would say 12 to 15 folks,
mhm.
and then when we went to Olin Turtle or Olin Conservancy, we had 40 folks,
Oh,
and
wow.
then most recently yeah, when we were at Picnic Point, we had 26 folks. So the
Wow.
word is definitely spreading.
That's great. That's great. And now you also you mentioned earlier, but and you told me the other day too that Operation Fresh Start actually takes folks who your folks you work with, and they actually do work at the kind of parks,
Absolutely. Yep, so
right?
we have
And I
yeah,
yeah, and I know you've worked out here near me with Stewart kind of park. Stewart Lake kind of park is my primary hiking spot.
okay.
And I know you've done work out there. So, um, what does that do for folks like doing actually like hands on and restoring prairies and trails and things like that? What does that do for folks? Do you think?
Absolutely. So what I think is, right, so at Operation Fresh Start, I like to say there's nothing traditional about us. So it's not
Hmm.
a traditional high school setting, it's an alternative high school. where young people actually have hands-on experience. So being able to be stewards of the land, we have city and county contracts. So to be able to be stewards of the land, right? Um, the just some of the benefits that I don't even know if they realize, right? Of being in fresh air, of taking
Mm.
care of the land, of being in the sunshine, like all the vitamin D that they get to have access to on a daily basis.
It's literally physically beneficial to you, be outside,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. Mhm.
Do you find that folks are, I think it's people of color specifically, are surprised at how accessible outdoors is and how beneficial it is to them?
I
Or
think they
yeah,
I think they do, and the reason why and I'll even talk about my own experience.
yeah,
I've lived in Madison all my life,
mm-hmm,
um, and there's so many places that I've driven by or even experienced. So, they used to have the blues festival at Olin Park.
mm-hmm,
I had no idea of the conservancy behind the like, the building, right? Like,
mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm,
pavilion. Even over on, Northport, like, there's a park behind the Health and Social Services building.
mm,
I mean, there's so many, like, cool, like, pockets within our neighborhoods. There
mm-hmm,
I'm gonna get this wrong, so don't quote me on this. Over off of Rimrock Road or Moreland, one of the 2, down, like, if you're going towards Briar Patch, there's a park in a neighborhood that's called Indian Springs.
mm-hmm.
It's stunning, and to drive past it, you would have no idea that it's there.
Wow, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it's all right. It's all right here. It's all right when we have it, right? And the fact that the local governments have made that investment and made that decision to set that land aside and maintain it and keep it, and let's make use of it, right?
absolutely, and maintain it and keep it for everybody. I like to stress that.
Mm,
Maintain it and
mhm,
keep it for
mhm.
everybody.
That's so key. I get, I hear a lot that, like, I'm going camping and kayaking, and I'm, going shopping at REI for my whatever, my freeze dried backpacking food or whatever. I was going like, that is the whitest thing you do.
Oh,
But
we are
yeah, but it's like, but it's like outdoors activity somehow has gotten coded as white, right?
absolutely.
And I think what you're trying to tell us is that there's no reason for that necessarily,
That's it,
right? So
that's it.
so what are the barriers? Like what are the cultural the why are people of color hesitant to engage in outdoors, or are they, or they just don't know where it is, or what's the barrier? I guess I don't know.
I think it's a whole bunch of
Mm-hmm.
different things, right? So I think we have to think about as a country, and I learned this on a podcast, that James Edward Mills of the Joy Project or Joy Trip Project
Mm-hmm.
did.
Yep. Yep.
Believe the person that he interviewed was named Robert Sanders, and I didn't know this. The national parks were segregated up until 1945,
Yeah, it's not surprising.
right? So if you can't go legally,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then
Right. Well, that's true. Yeah. This is a generational thing, right? Like
yeah,
grandparents and parents and everything. But if you're 2 generations ago,
right?
you weren't allowed to, right?
Yeah, so then we have to think about that, right? We have to think
Mm-hmm.
about what does being in the outdoors and safety look like
Uh,
for certain populations of folks?
uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I also think access. So again, when we think
Uh-huh.
about where do we go, we often think about when we talk about the outdoors and hiking, it always feels like the way that it's marketed, in my opinion, to society is you've got to have a car, you've got to have money. It's an expensive hobby, right? Because you've got
Right.
to go to REI or have all the goods or all the things.
Right. You gotta have the
And
expensive boots and the wicking fabric and the certain kind of jacket and certain kind of whatever and poles and all that stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They really
So
don't.
and then too, like, do you find where do you find the time? Do people actually have
Mm.
the
Yeah.
time?
Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
Right. Um, So speaking of that, though, when you say that it's marketed such that you feel like you have to have all these fancy, expensive things, but in your experience, if I do just want to go out to Donald Park for the afternoon, what do I
Mhm.
actually need? Do you think?
Absolutely. So I always tell people, first of all, you want to make sure that somebody knows where you're going. So, like, when I
Mm-hmm.
go hiking out, right? So whether I like to solo hike a lot, but I always make
Mm-hmm.
sure that somebody in my family knows where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
I let them know, when I get there and when I come home.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you wanna do the research about the park itself, right? So what trails are there? What's the, and you can find all this information online. So I would
Oh yeah, it's
encourage
easy. Yep.
somebody to do research ahead of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wanna make sure to be hydrated. So you wanna make sure to have plenty of water. I
Mm-hmm.
always tell people to bring snacks, right? You always wanna make sure to have some kind of snack,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's cheese sticks, uh, granola, nuts, whatever your heart desires.
Mm-hmm.
Um, 2, I have what they call a blue bird, so I always carry, like, an alarm system on me for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason, just in case, to be safe. And then I also encourage people, so this is funny too. I carry a, poncho, a rain poncho.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you wanna make sure that you're wearing shoes that are comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
right? And whatever that looks like. And the reason why I say that, when I was taking my 7-year-old at the time granddaughter hiking, she would hike in her sandals, and people were appalled. And I was like, "You know what? If she's having fun and
Yeah.
she is comfortable in them, if that's what works for her, that's what works for her." So,
Yeah.
make sure that you're wearing comfortable shoes, make sure that you're wearing comfortable clothing. So you wanna make sure that you're wearing clothing that if you get snagged on a tree, or a tree limb and your shirt rips, you're okay with it. So
Mm-hmm.
you wanna be comfortable, and you wanna make sure that your feet are going to be comfortable as well. And then 2, depending on what time of year, sunscreen, right? Black folks should be using sunscreen too.
Yeah.
You wanna make sure that you have sunscreen, you wanna make sure that you have a hat if you need it, and, some hiking poles, or one of the things that I've learned too is, depending on what trails you're on or where you're at, some people will actually get a stick from the outdoors, and then they'll leave it at the trailhead. So then you can use that stick as a walking stick too.
Oh, nice. I like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my kids are always find the perfect stick, and then like save it, and
Uh-huh.
then that's their stick for the whole weekend
I love it.
if we're camping or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so beyond hiking,
yeah,
you get out on the water, you get out paddling or kayaking or camping, anything like that. Mountain
I do.
biking.
So mountain biking, I haven't tried yet. I don't, and maybe it's because I haven't been invited. So if I go mountain biking, it's because I know somebody who will
Sure.
teach me.
Yeah.
But I have been. I love to kayak. I love to go to Brittingham Boats, rent a
Mm-hmm.
kayak, and just be
Mm-hmm.
out on the water.
Mm-hmm.
I've also done boating and birding with the BIPOC Birding Club of Wisconsin
Oh, cool.
and
Yep.
Southern Wisconsin. Yep, Birding
Mm-hmm.
Alliance. Chris Kilgore and I, with a group of folks, and I'm not gonna remember the group, so I apologize. We've done canoeing with a group, which was fantastic. One of the canoes actually tipped, so that's a whole 'nother story for a whole 'nother day. Um, and I've been to St. Croix National Park with the BIPOC Birding Club of Wisconsin, and we did a paddle. It was a 6-hour paddle on the water.
Awesome.
It was incredible. And one of the, folks of the BIPOC Birding Club of Wisconsin, Rita, it was her actual first time in a kayak.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and it's interesting to watch birds, or to bird,
Mm-hmm.
I should say,
Mm-hmm.
from land versus on
Mm-hmm.
water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it's just a whole 'nother vibe.
That's so cool. I was
Yeah,
I was fishing out here at Stewart Lake last year, or the year before,
mhm,
and I saw a bird that I'd never seen before,
okay,
and I got kind of, but that I would never would have seen from land, like because it was
right,
in a spot that's like not really accessible from land, but like I'm in my canoe, I'm trying to find a spot to catch a bass, and I look and I see this bird. I've never seen this bird before, so I took a picture of it. I texted it to Dexter, and
okay,
he's like, "Oh yeah, I
exactly.
was," and he goes, I was out at Stewart Lake last weekend and I saw that bird. Like it's a
Wow,
limpkin. It was a limpkin. It was a bird that's never in Wisconsin hardly ever. But like the fact that like he and I were like both saw the same bird at the same place a week apart. It was, I don't know. It's just so cool.
that is
But
cool.
but those are the stories you get, right, when you get outside and you get like these are like that 6 hours on that river. Something you and Rita and all this will never forget, right?
That's it,
Yeah.
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 So in addition to, kayaking, I loved most recently, I've learned to hunt,
Okay.
and then this winter, I went ice fishing for the first time.
Oh wow. Did you catch anything?
Well, the funny thing is I was on Chris's, and we were Rob, no lie, we were catching fish left and right. It was insane. So the first time I went, I didn't take the fish off the hook because I was like, and then the second time we went, I was like a fanatic. I wanted the whole experience. So
Yeah,
I was doing catch and release, but yeah, it's fabulous.
that's awesome. Chris is being his place up in Dodge County, right? That little
Yep. Mhm.
quarry pound
Mhm.
he's got out there. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, is there any trip, any like outdoors experience that you haven't done yet that you got kind of like on your mind for this coming summer or anytime in the
So
future?
yeah, so last December, because my birthday is in December, last December, I went to my first national parks. So I booked a trip, flew out to Las Vegas, drove to Utah, and went to Zion and Bryce National Parks. So
Oh,
this
cool.
summer, so now I'm like all into it. So this summer, I plan to go to Indiana Dunes. So that's my goal.
Awesome. Awesome. Have you got out to Joshua Tree? That's my favorite
No,
national
is
park.
it really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So my wife's from San Diego, so we go visit family every once in every year or so, and then we'll often drive up to Joshua Tree for a
Oh,
day or two.
nice.
And it's desert hiking is like a different thing.
Is it
It's
really?
like yeah, because it's like so hot and so dry and just like
Yeah.
rocks and cactus. It's really great. I could go on. Anyway, Jasmine, I really appreciate your time and check out Jasmine's recommendations along with Chris's and Dexter's and Devin Guthrie from Way Outside at UW, Madison365.org this morning. Jasmine, thanks again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Rob. And
All right.
thanks, Dexter and Chris, for recommending me.
Yeah. All right. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye bye.
And joining us now is Gary Davis, known to many in the music business around Madison as Gary Knowledge. How you doing, sir?
How you doing today, Rob?
I am great. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're here to talk about something that's happening next Saturday, May 17th, a week from
Absolutely.
tomorrow. And it is the second annual Fighting Disparities Free Men's Health Screening and Prostate Cancer Expo. And you're the driving force behind this. Give us just a real quick, what do we expect to happen on Saturday? What's happening on that day? And then we'll talk a bit more about your background.
Okay, so on Saturday, what we'll be doing is we will be number one, bringing awareness to prostate cancer, but we'll be giving 7 point checks. But just when you walk in the door, one of the biggest things you'll do is, and I've always believed in that it's always about creating a vibe. So when you walk in the door, you'll hear some music playing at a respectful level. Is we get everybody in the groove, and then we will be having food catered at El Pastor Mexican restaurant. It's free. It's completely free. Everything is free.
Okay.
And then we will be signing up people to have, if they haven't signed up to they will be taking a blood draw, basically. That's it. That's all it is a blood draw. And it's a
Mhm.
7 point test. And it kind of tells people what their PSA, their testosterone, their cholesterol, their triglycerides, HDL, their LDL, and their glucose. So they'll be able to tell. And not only will it like spot for cancer, but diabetes and any other health things that people could go through.
Well,
Well,
that's what the PSA is the prostate specific
yeah,
antigen, which is the
yeah,
indicate. Now,
that's
am I
this.
correct in thinking that if your PSA is at a certain level, then that doesn't mean you have cancer necessarily, but that's when you would go and get the more um the more complete
Intrusive.
screening and
Yeah,
the slightly more intrusive version of
yeah, yeah.
that test.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
that's I mean, that's like the silver lining is that it doesn't automatically mean that you have cancer.
Mm,
And
uh-huh.
I thank you, Rob, for bringing that up because I think a lot of people think an elevated PSA means that you have cancer, and that's not the truth. It's a good indicator, but then that's when they're gonna say, "Hey, let's do a biopsy,"
Right.
or "Let's watch it a little bit and see if it goes up."
Well, and the thing, I mean, as a heart attack survivor, I also would have benefited from a cholesterol screening at some point in my life, which I never had until the cardiologist is like, "Your cholesterol is so high. How are you alive?" Uh, so,
Well,
but we as men I think we're kind of, I don't know if we just want to ignore it or if we're like, if as long as I don't know it's high, then it's fine, you know. But the fact is, it is high.
well, and the biggest thing is you're absolutely right, Rob, is that a lot of us just think that it's gonna go away.
Right.
But it, it,
Well,
it
you
doesn't
go when you
work
die.
like that. One of the craziest things, one of the statistics that I've been learning, and I also just want to reiterate that this is event is family friendly,
Okay.
because cancer affects the whole family.
Mm.
So at the end of the day, we encourage women, the wives and everything, to come to just as well, because it's a known fact that 30%, if you have a partner or a wife, men are 30% more likely to go to the
Mm.
doctors. And
Interesting.
so we also know that a lot of the women are going to be pushing
Yeah,
their husbands to go and get tested.
for sure. Yeah,
So definitely.
this is happening again Saturday, May 17th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Urban League Greater Madison, which is at 2222 South Park Street. And it's meant for, it's free. There's lunch, and who should come? You said the whole family, but like specifically, who are we screening for?
Well, we're screening, and I always tell people this. I never like to put parameters on it,
Yeah.
but usually we're looking for people, that men that are 40 and up. But we're not going to turn you down. But 40 and up, we would like to see more men of color come out. I
Mhm.
always tell my black brothers we need to stop being scared to see the doctor like we are the police. And that's just a true fact.
Yeah.
We would love to first responders, anybody who's a first responder, the vets, we appreciate you for your service to this country, but we also would love to see you guys get tested, because the truth of the matter is you are more than likely, the risk is higher for you to possibly obtain cancer from some of the situations you've been in.
Mhm.
But like I say, those are the people that we would like to say. But just because you don't fall into those categories does not mean that you're not welcome. I believe in bringing. I'm about including rather than excluding. So
Sure.
yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
more to it than just the blood draw, right? There's information and
Oh
education.
yeah. We have a lunch and learn. Basically, I will be one of the speakers. My doctor, my primary doctor, her name is Dr. Hampton. And part of the reason, Rob, that I decided to bring her on is, number one, she's a primary doctor, and to show us the importance, because
Mm.
if you have a good relationship with your doctor, those are going to be the people that are testing you. And that's like pretty much the first line of defense. I think
Right.
so many of us wait until the car breaks down rather than to get the
Mhm.
regular maintenance. And all the
Mhm.
regular maintenance starts with the doctor,
Mhm.
your primary doctor. I remember talking to my doctor, who also will be there for cancer. His name is Dr. McNeil. And I remember talking to him, and I was like, hey, and he asked me, he said, well, who's your primary doctor? And I said, you are. And he said, no, I'm not. I'm your doctor that's going to help you fight cancer. But who's going to help you for all of the other things? And that did two things for me. Number one, it showed me that there's a possibility that other things might break down. But the second and the probably most important thing that it taught me is that he gave me hope. because he was saying, just because you've been diagnosed with this doesn't mean that it's the ending of this. He was saying, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, like, yeah, definitely.
But let's talk a little bit about your background here. You mentioned your doctor's going to be there. You mentioned you had a cancer diagnosis about 5.5 years ago. You told me. What was what are you trying to bring, I guess, to this event that maybe you didn't have at that time? You know what I mean?
Well, very, very first and foremost is I never want someone to go through what I had to go through.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite a big challenge for me, first of all, and never to put down the medical system because I know it's a hard job, but one of the most craziest things that happened to me was the journey. When I first was diagnosed, I mean, I was going to the doctor regularly. And my previous doctor had even been had a proctosectomy also before that. Plus, I also lost my father from prostate cancer.
Oh, you did? Wow.
Yes, I lost my father from prostate cancer. I had went to his funeral, and 18 months after I had lost my father, I came back, and I started having some issues. Just some male plumbing issues every once in a while. I'm not ashamed of it. And I would go to this doctor and I would always leave with some type of potion or lotion. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this is it. This is it. But it was always in my records that my father had died from it. And like I said, this doctor that I was dealing with at the time, he also was going through this. So my PSA at the time, it was checked. I was at 2.8. Now, and I wasn't even 50 years old. You know what I'm saying? So the crazy thing about that, at 2.8, a man 50 and under should be at 1 and under. And so they shouldn't even be nervous about it. So me being 2.8, I said, well, doc, what should I do? He's like, oh, well, just keep an eye on it. You're 45 years old. I only think I was 45 at the time. I might have been a little. He's like, don't worry about it. We'll keep an eye on it. Come back and see me in 5 years. That's basically what he was saying. And then so 18 months later after that, I love to eat, bro. I love to eat, Rob, for real. And I was just sitting, and my boss at the time had told me, she's like, yeah, we're going to take you out to eat and everybody. So that morning I was sitting around, I was excited, and a pain came. And like I said, I mean, it was like a Mike Tyson jab to my side, and it just dropped me. Like, that's how it felt. So if you could picture Mike Tyson hitting you,
yeah,
that's how I felt. So I was like, whoa. And then I sat there and I was like, I can't go with you guys. I think I'm just gonna go home and lay down. And my boss, knowing me and knowing how greedy I am, basically
this is not like you, Gary.
had said, look, you need to go get checked out if you're turning down a free meal. So I went home that day, laid down, slept, took a nap, woke up, and I was like, okay, the pain is gone. But it just didn't sit right with me, Mike. Rob. It just didn't sit right. I was like, something's not right. So it was a Friday. That day, the next day, I went to urgent care. And there was a doctor, and I hate that I don't even remember his name because he was an amazing man. But I went to urgent care and I sat there and I was telling him, and he says, you know what? I'm just gonna test you for everything, from STDs to whatever, PSA, all that. And he comes back and he says, your PSA is at 4.
Oh, wow.
And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set you up with a biopsy. And I went to, of course, have that biopsy a week later. And that's when I found out. But just to go a little bit, but the experience that I went through with that urologist was not a pleasant one.
Yeah.
And so again, me saying what I went through, I never would want to see anyone go through that again. It was enough to make me realize that. So yeah.
So the fundamentally, that urologist, that you know you have family history, he sees elevated PSA, still doesn't.
Well, yeah, that was my primary doctor at the time, but the
your primary doctor.
urologist, I just want to share, like,
Yeah.
when they say bedside manners, you know what that means?
Yeah.
This doctor had no bedside manners.
Yeah.
Even as he was giving me my biopsy, he was turning around and he was saying, like, they numb you. They don't knock you out. They just numb you so you don't feel it. He was like, this is the toughest prostate that I've ever worked with. So I had to ask myself, and I was raised that you judge every man accordingly. Like, so it wasn't about me ever feeling that he was treating me different, because my mother's always told me, just because somebody's white doesn't make them your enemy, and just because somebody's black doesn't make them your brother. You judge every man accordingly. So I had that in my head. Like, I didn't think like he was doing something to be malicious, but as I started thinking about it, I was like, yo, like, if I was a 60-year-old or 70-year-old white man, would you say that to me?
Right.
Like, I'm already in here, nervous, scared about the experience.
Yeah.
And you're talking to me like, this was the toughest prostate I've ever worked on. What do you think that's going to send to me? So yeah. And then even after the fact, he told me, he said, I'll call you in 3 days. The phone rings, 2 days, at 2 days. And I'm so excited because I'm like, it's an early call, so it must be good. And he gets on the phone and he says, yep, just what I thought, you got cancer. Not once did he say, are you sitting down? Do you got family next to you? Are you driving a missile, which I happen to be, my car? Never once. He never asked that. Do you want to come into the office and we talk about it? First thing he waited for me to say is Gary Davis there. And I said, yes, this is him. And he said, just what I thought. You got prostate cancer. And I said, whoa. Slow down, doc. What are you saying? Like, and I'm literally saying this to him. He said, well, let me tell you, there's 3 types of cancer. There's slow, aggressive, and moderate. And you have aggressive. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, what's going on here? Like, and then I'll never forget this. It was the last question I ever asked this doctor. It was the last conversation I ever had with him. I asked him, I said, am I going to make it? And he said, I don't know. And then he hung up. And I never talked to that doctor again. Wow. Never. And never would really want to talk to him.
Right.
Except to tell him all the things that he could have done better. I don't want to say wrong.
Yeah.
What he could have done better. So yeah.
Yeah. Right. But all that leads into that part of this, that right in the title of this event is Fighting Disparities, right? Mm-hmm. It's about, we're screening individuals for health, for indicators of health in your blood. We're giving you education and information, but also we're fighting disparities. Can you talk a little bit about that, and how are you fighting disparities, and how have you been advocating for equity in the health system in the 5 years since you got diagnosed?
Absolutely. I always tell people, like, because of my journey, that I realized how many disparities there are. Even with me sharing in the story, that if I was a black man, if I was a white man, would that have happened?
Right.
But I also want to flip this. A lot of times we talk about the Tuskegee experiment and why there's also a fear of going to the doctor.
Yeah.
But I also tell people that we have to be careful, because we can be slaves in our own mind. I understand what happened. All of us understand what happens, back then. But what we have to understand is that there's a lot of things in place that allow us and that have checks and balances. And if you don't get tested, guess what? It doesn't matter what's going on with you because you're not going to make it through it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I always tell people, get tested, because the greatest thing to prevention is early detection.
Mm-hmm.
So many people, there's a poster that I seen, and there was a horse, and it was tied to a pink lawn chair. It was like almost a Clydesdale. Now that horse could have just moved and walked to wherever he wanted to be.
Yeah.
But it was so conditioned to being tied up to a post that it stopped trying. And that's what has happened to a lot of African Americans. And I'm speaking of that because not because I don't know, is because I talk to people constantly.
Mm-hmm.
They still think that they're tied to that post. And as great as knowing what's going on and realizing the stuff that is going on, we need to understand, Rob, that we can't be slaves to our own mind. We have to still go out there and fight. So I do go and I travel. I've had the blessing, the fortune to be able to go around and travel and bring awareness to this. But it's not about me at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm a man of faith and I don't hide it. God has allowed me to be his vessel. And that's all what it is. So when I go around and I'm making sure that this stuff is brought to the light, it's not about me. It's not about, look at me, hey, I'm the greatest, because I'm not. It's about being like, I look at this as an honor and a blessing to be able to go ahead and to do this. So that's one of the biggest things that that I've realized that doing this has been for me. So
yeah, and I'm often struck that I think people maybe don't understand that good health care, that good is actually kind of white privilege in some cases. Like in my case, I had my appendix burst and then I had a heart attack within 2 months of each other, and both times I got really, really great care because in Madison has great healthcare facilities and great healthcare personnel. But also everybody that I talked to automatically believed me.
100%.
Like they understood. Like when I said I'm having pain right here, there was no question about it. There was no like, well, we'll keep an eye on it until later. Like everybody just understood what was happening and treated me, and I came through it fine because of that. And there are, like you say, would that doctor have spoken to you differently if you were white? And would any of those doctors have thought differently about me if I was black or a woman or whatever? So I think that the disparities are there, and it doesn't require anybody to be specifically a racist individual, right? It's kind of built in the system, right?
Well, and Rob, I appreciate you so much for your realness, because one of the things that we also need to look at is like when you see me, first thing, like when they see you, they're gonna look at you and they're gonna be like, okay, he's got insurance, he's got a good job, he's got those things.
Absolutely.
Not realizing that I had some of the best insurance there is.
You're right.
I mean, people say, what have you done? And I said, you know what? You'll be surprised at what having good insurance, how far you'll be able to go through this. Because you can't give me the with a lower shelf chemo. You got to give me that top shelf chemo, like that stuff that's not gonna have me where my I'm gonna have jaundice and my teeth and eyes and everything else is messed up or my hair's falling out, you got to give me some, because they know that. But even what you said was so powerful is that we have to realize that the disparities. Just to do this, and it wasn't about money. It was about bringing awareness. I went and filed a complaint against that doctor, and the hospital put me on trial, basically. And it's like, it's happening every day. I don't want to scare people, but it's also one of the things that we want to teach them about in this event is also how to advocate for yourself. Because, the saying they say a closed mouth doesn't get fed,
Mm.
but at the same time, it's so important that we know how to talk to people and the right questions to ask. So, you were able to go into a room and say, hey, this is where it hurts. Da, 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 da. They didn't ask you too many questions. But the truth of the matter is sometimes some of us are going to go into a room and say, we have a pain, and you don't understand that. Sometimes those doctors are going to be sizing you up. Not in a disrespectful way. I know amazing doctors, but they're going to be sizing you up to be like, how is this person's insurance going to work? How good is their insurance? Because for me, if I can't navigate, well, I won't even say navigate, if I can't maneuver the way I need to, it's not going to be worth me to, do this, biopsy and to do this and do that. And they're not going to be able to pay that bill. So, yeah.
Well, there've been, I mean, I forgive me, listener, I don't have all the statistics right at my fingertips, but
I got a whole bunch if you need.
and I'm sure you do. But I know that there are significant, unexpectedly high percentages of medical students or recent medical school graduates who literally think Black people have a higher pain tolerance, or literally think that Black people have thicker or tougher skin.
Oh yeah.
And so which is just so when you describe your pain, there's going to be some skepticism or something.
Yeah. It's just like I blame Jimmy the Greek for that back in the day when he told national TV
for men
that we
our
have
age.
an
That's
extra
a reference
muscle.
that men our age will understand, right?
We got an extra muscle so we can jump higher.
Right.
So yeah, but you're absolutely right, and that's why I was fortunate to get a doctor, and even though she was a female, she was a Black female.
All right, Gary, this has been really, really important conversation. It's important stuff, especially for men, men of color who we are, for whatever reason, we just don't take care of ourselves the way we should, and in many cases, and there are, like you said, there is a well-earned distrust between Black men and the healthcare system, but you still so come to this place, to Urban League, which maybe is the place you trust, with Gary Knowledge, a guy you trust, and get some blood drawn, and then see what you got.
And let me tell you something, how we do this. We fly in black phlebotomists. We fly them in. So there one is from Tampa, and I think the other one is from Miami. But we fly them in because
that's so cool.
We want people to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a free screening. I'll be real quick. Free screening. If you show up and you come and you get, you participate in having your blood drawn and taking that 7-point test, you will be entered into a raffle. We're giving out 2 Visa cards. We're giving out a lot of other gifts. We'll be giving out gas cards from Quick Trip. And we're not trying to buy you. But we just want you to know, and it's free food. But the biggest thing is education. You're being educated on this whole thing.
Point here is, if you're nervous to go to the clinic, can't get around to getting in the clinic, there's nothing to be nervous here on Saturday. You got people around, people who are like you, who are just ready to support you and get you get the testing you need, the education you need, and some lunch while you're at it from El Pastor.
And I'll stand next to you, and you can squeeze my hand if you.
There you go.
I'm
Gary's
serious.
there for support.
For real.
All right, Gary. Again, we'll have all this is on the website, Madison365.org. There's a link there to register. You do not have to register.
No, you do not have to. But
it would help if you did, so that know how much food you get. Let me ask this: at the first year last year, how many people did you have?
Last year we had probably 38 people show up, but we
have
had
a goal for this year? You have
22 people. do that. I want to double that number at least.
Okay. Right.
So I'm looking at like at least 50 people getting tested. I mean, let me just share this real quick. And this is not bragging or shameless plugs or anything like that. But Johnson and Johnson, Pfizer, and Bayer offered. Well, they donated $75,000
Wow.
to these testings. Each one of those testings costs $750. We have 100 tests.
Okay.
So this is what I'm talking about, like the importance, because I don't want to talk politics. I'm not, but we have somebody in office right now who is taking some major cuts at the healthcare system. And like anything else, for this event, if we don't have the support, then this event that we have is gonna go somewhere else to another market where people are gonna show up more.
Yeah.
And guess what happens to those people that lose their Badger care, lose their Medicaid, lose all those other things? Guess what's gonna happen? They're not gonna have the opportunity to check and take care of themselves. It's gonna be, this is what life is about to be like. It's gonna be like what you have is what you have, and what your health is what your health is. So if someone tells you, get out there and support and go to these events, not just the events that Gary Knowledge is throwing, but the events that Aaron Perry is throwing, the events that Johnny Winston are doing, the events the African American Cancer Camp is doing, the events the Roland Stroll, which is the pancreatic. Go to them all. Go to them all, because it is so important that you support, and especially support people that look like you. So, yeah.
All right. Gary Davis, thanks so much for your time, and we'll have this all information at Madison365.org. Best of luck with the event.
I appreciate you for your time, Rob. You take care.
Have a great weekend.
365 Amplified is produced and edited by me, Rob Chappell, and is a production of 365 Media Foundation, a nonprofit, local, independent media organization in Madison, Wisconsin. Wherever you're listening to this right now, hit the subscribe or follow button to get new episodes every Friday. And between episodes, get your latest news at Madison365.org, and follow us on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Threads. Wherever you get your news, we'll be there.